This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Hey everyone, Dave here, December 1773. With me always is Ryan. This is episode 45 of the weekly show. I do believe it's 45.
It's 45, man. We're at Magnum size now.
There we go.
The fire.
Tonight on the weekly show, we got Google employees concerned over companies tracking, Texas hospital lawsuits, Ryan's worst nightmare comes to life, and the big news about COVID origins. Stick around to the end to get Ryan's Decembertainment and, likely, as always, a little Ryan misogyny. He always finds a way to get it in there.
I'll sneak her in there, bro.
With that said, I'm ready to get into it, Ryan. Headlines. Google employees share concerns over location tracking during an Arizona lawsuit. Arizona lawsuit.
What's the big concern here?
Well, the employees at Google are very concerned about Google's ability to track us.
That's weird. I thought we had nothing to hide as a society, so why would we worry about getting tracked?
Maybe those Google employees have stuff to hide. Apparently, the Attorney General of Arizona is not too pleased with this either. We all know how this goes, though. Nothing's going to happen to Google.
I heard it put greatly one time that a lot of times when these things go to court, these companies get caught explicitly violating rights, or whether it's the government or whatever, and then all they got to do is go and change a couple words of the law, and it's like a loophole. It just makes more of these legal loopholes. So it's like by the time the damage is already done and we hold them accountable, they now have just like this very easy system to maybe change some of that. Not saying it happens every time, but this is a byproduct of the legal system. So, but yeah, it's what's so important about like these broad brushing things. But liberty's got to be guarded, man.
What's a little tricky too is, of course, you do agree to tracking. You can literally turn it on and off. So it's probably a tough legal battle. But I think there's stipulations to when they can and can't track you. I don't think they can just freely track you all the time. I think it has to do with particular app usage and things like that. Like if you're using Google Maps, obviously they know your location, because how else would they map out directions for you?
Yeah, it's just so. This just gets so complicated, right? With all this data that we share, images. I've heard stuff that if you're on a computer and you save somebody's Instagram photo on your computer, and you can go into your photos and you can actually see the location. And like if the person didn't put the safeguards on their end when they upload things on the internet, there might be things that you've overlooked, or like a location setting, for example. We're not saying it's all going to be nefarious, but what does happen if you don't use VPNs and other things, when you go to these other websites, they take all your data about where you've just been, the websites you like to go to, the places you like. So it's just, I've talked before about how like we're building the systems of the future with our data, and we don't even know how they're being crafted because we don't have value on this data. And I think that this court case and that kind of location privacy kind of all butt up nice together with that point. That it's, this, and it's also, sorry, I just got super glitchy. Yeah, but that, I think it all butts up nice, and I think it's indicative too that if some of these companies' employees are coming out, and we'll call them whistleblowers, even though, whatever, they're coming out and kind of sounding the alarm, it's some cause for concern. But what you said, Dave, probably nothing come out of this. The average person doesn't care. They got nothing to hide. We can reference countless examples. The Trump administration was perfect for, the whole why privacy is important.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, Trump was ran through the muck because he didn't have privacies. Now, whether that's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. But that data out there, this information that we all use and utilize and put out there in the digital ones and zeros is important.
For sure. Speaking of your rights. Headlines. Texas hospital faces lawsuit over coronavirus vaccination mandate. Apparently, there's a hospital, I believe it's in Houston. They fired employees for failing to get the COVID-19 vaccine. And now 100, I think it's 117. Is that on here? Yeah, 117 employees have joined a lawsuit against that hospital.
I've brought this up before, right? We've talked about it here. Will people, this is the whole. I boil it down to the analogy of like, will you sell your family out for a loaf of bread? And that's, it sounds dramatic and stuff, but this is a very minute example of that. Like, it's not quite, you're not starving over it, but at some point, they're basically saying either comply or we'll fire you. We'll leverage your income, we'll leverage your wages, we'll leverage your ability to provide a lifestyle. I'm sure they're going to use the my body, my choice argument somewhere, basically,
So it's an interesting lawsuit because there's kind of two sides to this. I mean, at what point does the business have a right to its policies? And at what point does to themselves really? I mean, their own. It's a two-sided argument. It's kind of a tough one to navigate. I believe in businesses. They should really have the say on what happens at their business, but at the same time, you got to be somewhat realistic with the expectations.
Yeah, well, it's another point to that is like it's kind of weird because you talk about where's the private business start and stop. I mean, we've seen it, with COVID in general when they said some businesses are essentials, others aren't. And some of those non-essential businesses were private businesses owned by private people. They can't collect unemployment the same. They actually pay into unemployment a little bit. And then another thing, the gay cake bakery. That the Supreme Court said, nope, that's discrimination. You have to bake the cake for them. So you're basically saying what a business can and can't do. You're saying what type of business is a type of business. So yeah, there's a lot of double dipping on this. It's kind of cool. It's kind of crazy. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up. Because does that set a legal precedent for you can have it both ways, right?
Yeah, it's definitely gonna. I mean, and plus it's a hospital. Is it a public hospital? Is it a hospital for profit? Is it, like at what point is, this was built by taxpayers, so this is for we the government, we the people, right? So yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. I'm sure there will be, once again, we said last week with Crowder about precedent set. So we're setting a lot of new grounds for the battle of the future, man. The future civil liberties, the future some of this. Some people would call it draconian. Some people would call it, restrictive, corrupt, overreach. Yeah. We're battling a lot of that right now in real time with the information we have. So it's kind of crazy. It's all very important to everybody. This is all super important.
This next one here, I've never been as nervous about AI and the future of AI as quite frankly you have been. But this one, I'd imagine you're not going to like headlines. Killer drone a human without being told to. A Turkish military drone hunted down a human target in Libya last year without being ordered to do so. I remember robot music, and this is worse.
This is like the movie Eagle Eye.
I have not seen that movie.
Yeah, it's with Shia LaBeouf. It's basically the robot's the bad guy, and this robot in particular is set in a very high level of government. It's basically like the government's robot, and it can alter traffic cameras and spy on you through all the ATM cameras, and it's just a very good movie. It's like a scientific dystopian thriller. Very cool. It ends well. But yeah, this doesn't surprise me. I mean, what the hell do you think? I mean, back to people sounding the alarms. I mean, I know I say a lot of things in particular about Martians and stuff, but I know that I may have been propagandized to hate artificial intelligence, but I think it's a weary thing to have fears about. And stuff like this just reinforces it. I don't think you have to have a fantasy imagination to think that robots could turn on their creators. So,
Larry, are you familiar with Larry Sharp?
it sounds familiar.
He was a libertarian candidate. He ran for governor in New York.
Yeah. New York, yeah.
So when he was running, he was super. He hit this AI stuff really hard. Like any of it. The driverless cars, the self-checkouts, he didn't like any of it. And his big concern was that these things are preparing you to take people jobs. The self-checkout, as well, they don't have checkouts and things like that. But he, from that minuscule thing of a self-checkout all the way up to things like this happening, and he often was labeled as quite loony in that instance. But this is even worse than anything I think he predicted. It's just weird watching all these air quotes conspiracy theories come to life.
Yeah, we can't use that term anymore. I mean, we really can't. I mean, after Epstein, after Weinstein, after that's just in the open political realm with some very high, creepy, powerful people. Let alone talking about what's possible at the military level. I mean, there's a reason they have black ops sites and third-party contractors to build shit for the military. Because if they had to file it under We the People, if they had to file it under the government created, no, they go to a different company and they build it in international waters that can escape, international laws and codes and stuff. They have this all set up so that they can still do this. I mean, I got a headline right here that is from the Daily Wire that Senate Democrats voted down a bill that would abolish human-animal chimera hybrids.
That was a conspiracy too.
Super big conspiracy.
Why do we have to vote down this? I mean, they don't exist, right? Isn't this what we were told?
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
Doesn't, logically speaking, just from my end, like, you would need a bill for something that didn't exist.
Right, or if it doesn't exist already, there's a lot of thinking going on about it. Like, hey, maybe we could just make a half person and then whatever. Oh, and they'll masquerade it as we're gonna fix ADHD in kids because we can do whatever, or we can have liver transplant, half pig and half human, right? We can just get liver and arm transplants and all these. We're just jacking with, we've seen over the years CRISPR. That was a DNA sequencing database that they were going to alter your DNA so that cancer would basically rewrite itself out of your RNA sequence. I'm describing this very loosely, but CRISPR had fails. That started going hanky and haywire. So, we think we have, I don't want to say we're playing God, but it's the easiest way to put it. We're playing with fire. We're getting scorched by it. And if we're removing legal hurdles to make some of this shit possible, it's not good, man. I mean, computers that kill each other, the driverless cars we've talked about on this program, the cars blowing up, the environmental factor, not to mention the replacement of humans and the society factor, man. Like, there was that car last week or 2 weeks ago that a Tesla took out a police car. It's like...
Oh, I knew we had a headline about one that crashed and killed one of the drivers, and Elon Musk came out and said that it wasn't in the driverless mode at the time, but...
Yeah, it's what a convenient. That's called plausible deniability. How do I even know? And let's go. Let's just say, not that I trust or don't trust Elon, but it's his word against our word. And by the time we even hear it, we don't even care anymore. So does it even matter if it was in fucking driverless mode? I mean, and then this is the insurance talk. It's everything. This is crazy. So now let's piggyback with this drone thing. If we have a drone with artificial ability to kill people, and it does it over international borders, does the politician just get a pass? Be like, oh, well, the Israel drone just committed an act of war in Africa. And then what? All the people in Israel be like, no, it's not our problem. It did it by itself. Are we going to have...
That's interesting. Is there any liability?
Yeah, it's artificially intelligent. I can't hold the thing in court. What if the memory gets wiped after? Oh, standard protocol procedure. We destroy the drone after it happened. I mean, the thing about a person is you can hold it liable. If my computer malfunctions, I slam it on the ground. It's like the thing never existed. So That is something to keep going forward. And once again, to piggyback all this together, I came up with the freaking crazy fantasy world of having a half-human chimera with Elon Musk hyperlink. I mean, we're right here. We're talking about the very thing right here.
I don't know if you ever watched Seinfeld, but they had an old episode where they all had to go to the hospital to visit a friend of theirs, and Kramer found a pig man. He called him the pig man, and he like tried to hunt this guy down and find him. Half pig, half.
Good old Seinfeld.
These were all conspiracies. But to add to this conspiracy, a year ago, our next headline, a year ago, this was considered a conspiracy, and now there's a study that gives some new life to this. Headlines. Explosive study claims to prove Chinese scientists created COVID. A new study claims to have proof that Chinese scientists created COVID-19 in 2011 and tried to reverse engineer versions of the virus to make it look like it evolved naturally from bats. That was a big conspiracy. You actually weren't allowed to say that on social media until recently, when they actually removed the restrictions. You're now allowed to say this. So they took away anyone's ability to have the conversation, and we're allowed to have it again. But now it's a year later, and is it too late?
I don't know, we just shut off the American economy, bankrupted people. We're now printing money at a rate that's never been seen before. Inflation's doubling. People that talk, our former president talked about this, shadow ban. Steven Crowder talked about this, shadow ban. There's so many headlines that tie into this. So many. Just the idea that Facebook has lied, all these, the government lied. Now Biden's doubling his efforts to attack this. Why wasn't this on, like, I said it before we started recording. Do you remember during 9/11 when anthrax was getting shipped into people's mailboxes and they were like, we need to scan all the mail. This is a matter of national security. So where all the Patriot Act came from, people. And then now I'm supposed to believe that the military didn't come to you and say, hey, this could be a possibility. The military, the things designed to kill people, the things that always come up with these ideas, the very system, remember, Homeland Security made a whole fucking federal branch of the government to monitor your mail, to monitor phone calls, to monitor the borders, and be a fifth branch of the government, of the military, rather. So you made this whole system, and that system didn't come to you and say this was a possibility? This is lack of accountability. This proves that we're putting the wrong people in positions of power. This is indicative of the American conscience, man. This, like you said, this has been removed from the internet. They scrubbed anybody that talked about this. So now, what's super important about this is, since all the stuff's been scrubbed, we're all playing catch up. What about all the stuff that people talked about that could have been right now, but their video was deleted because it took off a theory that wasn't agreed upon?
That's really the right word. It's not about being proven; it's about being agreed upon. Because nobody knew the answer, because the study was never done.
Yeah, this is socialism of information. This is 51% of the people telling the other 49%, well, you can and can't print, what you can and cannot say. This is Marxism. This is communism. This is not, I'm not jumping here. I'm being very serious. This is the Marxism idea of information. They're telling you that, oh, the council of the council of Facebook says I've been getting banned this week in Facebook by just posting things like some of the things I'm saying, are jokes, or they could be considered dark humor. Yeah, but I get banned instantly. Their algorithm already bans me. It happened 3 times this week. So they've automatically scrubbed the internet before people even see it. People didn't see my comment. So videos that were getting posted about this topic in particular were getting scrubbed from the internet because it didn't fit with their narrative. And like I said, now that they've controlled information, they've already got ahead of the story. Now they can create any narrative afterwards that they want. Is the narrative afterwards that this was an accident from China, when before it was a purposeful thing? Because let's put it all together now. Now that we're admitting this could be man-made, why don't we think that the economy being shut down was a man-made idea to destroy America? How come that's not a man-made idea now? How come that's not getting talked about? If we're open to the idea that this came from a leak in a lab and they've been reverse engineering it to cover their tracks, well, let's go a step further. Let's just go a little layer deeper. That China built this on purpose to release it on America and take over. They knew what was happening. It was this happened during an election year. This isn't coincidence. Mail-in voting, all the controversy, Donald Trump the president. This isn't coincidence.
It'd
2 weeks
be
to flatten the curve?
It'd be an awfully strange coincidence.
It'd be a biblical coincidence. This isn't, once again, the military didn't put this together. You're telling me nobody in the military put this together, but people on YouTube did. Alex Jones did. Crowder did. You're telling me these people that have no extra information except reading the same news I do? Come on, the military knew this was possible. The military is probably leading this part of the investigation.
Well,
and now we got to go through the filters of the United Nations, through the Chinese government, all these corrupt, bloated federal, international organizations. I mean,
where do you think their president at the time got the information from? He didn't make it up. It came from somebody.
Anybody that was
somebody
smart
was giving him information. And then why? And then the other issue with this too is, of course, Fauci's been caught in numerous amounts of lies, but this has to be the biggest one by a mile. He said there's no way this is remotely true, and he's come out now and said that, well, yeah, they were doing research on this. We've paid them to do the research on this.
Yeah, I wonder why his name's been tied on his finger.
It's possible that this could have happened. Well, he's caught.
Yeah, and he's going to skirt. We've talked about it. He's not elected. He's appointed. He's going to skirt all accountability. The guy made more money than the president. We're hearing about right now. We're talking about paying people the correct amount of money to make them care about their job. This guy didn't care. He's making $3 million a year. He didn't care about his job. I know he doesn't care about civil liberties, but he could at least care about whether or not this was possible. And to go even further back to your military point, there was no people familiar with the matter that leaked this stuff to the media. There was nobody familiar with the matter that this could maybe be lab-made. Sources close to the Wuhan lab said it could be made from man. None of this was happening. I hear it about everything else, though. Sources close to Kim Kardashian say Kanye was abusive. I mean, I'm just making headlines up that I've already read. Like, come on, yeah. Nobody came out was familiar. You didn't have a leak from a general. Some military guy didn't call somebody, be like, hey, and then they go on their podcast. Oh, that's right, you took it off the internet because you didn't agree with it.
That's where this leads to, which is even a bigger issue. I mean,
that's the bombs. Yeah, this is about big tech colluding with the government and the news. That's what this is. This is Big Brother. This is completely Orwellian. We watched it. They lied to you, and they deleted anything about it.
So along these lines, there was a study that was done, a poll actually, and I know you love polls. 12% of people who voted for Biden said they would not have done so if they had heard more information on the Hunter Biden laptop story. 12%.
Yeah, let's extrapolate 12% of 100 million.
It's a lot.
It's
election changing.
That's the difference. Yeah. Hunter Biden was just caught this week admitting that he was smoking crack with one of the mayors or something that died recently. I could pull it up if you want, but he's bragging on a recording on the very laptop you're speaking of. I mean, come on, people. Big tech colluded with the media and the politicians to give you Joe Biden.
Well, that's exactly it, because Twitter scrubbed the story from the New York Post.
And they deleted the guy that said, look, they're trying to steal this from me. Whether or not they said, is that the next one they're going to come out and admit, right? Because they removed all the videos of, you couldn't say election theft or they demonetize you. Is that the next story? Is that what it's going to take? So the lab theory can come out being man-made. Well, what about the election getting stolen? You banned videos on that the same way they've done with the man-made theory. Is that the next one to leak? And then once again, all the information's been removed. You deleted the president's Twitter over it. We the people's Twitter. So where do we go from here, people?
Well, that's right. Where do you go from here? Because if the story does come out about that, about potential election fraud and how that went, if that's the next story to come out, the election doesn't get reversed. Oops. But meanwhile, gas is up, inflation's up, oil's up. I'm not saying it's based on present. There's a lot of factors to it. But look at the world, people. We're on 2 weeks to flatten the curve. We're at, if you're fully vaccinated, still wear a mask to protect other people. We're at this other thing. Worry about others while everything's being eroded. Inflation's at double what it normally is. We're having businesses are closing because they can't get employees.
in my local town. This isn't news. I didn't read a news story. This is stuff like Louis, a hot dog spot that's been in Buffalo for 80 years, is closing because they can't, never to reopen. Never to reopen. They didn't have a drive-through. They didn't have this system for DoorDash. It might be their fault for not adapting to changes. Business, I agree. But the government told them to shut down. This wasn't that they failed because of their own bad business practices. It was the government told them, if you open, we're gonna fine you. We'll fine you into the ground. And then because of their bad business practices, they weren't able to thrive. So yeah, maybe, Louis might have closed in 10 more years on their own dollar. But how can we say, this is crazy? The government did this. The government created the very problem, and they're acting as the saviors. They'll do it with the lab leak. They'll do it with election results. They'll do it with all these things. And our solution, to go further, the solution for some of these people is to get more government to fix it.
No, we'll see how that works.
Yeah, we'll see how that works. More government built that fucking virus that shut the whole world down. And you think there's no repercussions from shutting the whole globe down? That's crazy. We own 1/4 of the world's wealth. You think you can just slow that down to a trickle and turn it back on without severe consequences to everything? They knew this would happen. Once again, they know exactly what they're doing. You don't think like economists, people familiar with the matter. Do you remember that? Oh, some economists say this, some say this. So amazing. They can print both sides of what could really happen. And it was a mixture of both of them. That's crazy, man. This is Big Brother showing their hand, man.
Yeah, this is big. The fact that they came out and... Well, they didn't come out and admit this. There's a study that got released that shows this, but it's just...
And Daily Wire is suing the mayor of Chicago because she says she's not going to get interviewed by white reporters.
Oh, so, why didn't they just send Shapiro down? Just saying.
Yeah, the guy's suing him, bringing a lawsuit because it's racist. I mean, this is where we're at, people.
White girlfriend or white wife?
What?
Doesn't Lori Lightfoot have a white girlfriend or a white wife?
I have no idea.
Can we go on the park walk right now?
What?
Can we go on the park walk right now?
We'll go after, honey.
What?
So yeah, this isn't surprising, man. This is all honestly, not to brag, but we literally talked about all this. We have talked about all this on this program over the last X amount of episodes. We've watched this develop. We've covered it every week. We get on here every week to tell you people that this shit happens. I'm just going to brush over a couple things quick. I saw a couple other things that were kind of funny. They all kind of tie back into everything we talked about today. But did you see any of the... I know you shared it to our Facebook page at December 1773. Go follow. You shared the ATF nomination and his... 15 assault weapons ban.
Yeah, I forgot to mention this on the show. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know this guy, he was behind the Waco shooting.
Yeah, where people died, civilians were killed by the government.
Yeah. They raided. I'm not saying whatever, like the David Kress and all of them. I'm not saying he was without fault and he wasn't a little nuts, but we had innocent women and children inside this place that the ATF just lit up. I mean, they had no care in the world what was going to happen. And this guy is now saying, what firearms should be banned and things like that, the AR-15 and how to define an assault weapon, but he can't define an assault weapon, which I don't believe that somebody can't define that. What I believe is that they won't define that.
They won't do it openly. They won't tell you, because if they're like, oh, so that's what you consider assault weapon, then you're like, hey, you know what's weird is your configuration takes away 99% of the firearms on the market. It'd be like, well, I guess they're all assault weapons then now, aren't they? They're all AR-15s. Your pistol's an AR-15. Your shotgun's an AR-15. In the SAFE Act in New York State, they were going to have pump-action shotguns considered an assault weapon. These people know what they're doing, especially about the firearm. They are fearful of it. And the AR-15 is the civilian equivalent to the military's guns. We always talk about how the military's got more firepower than the civilian. Yeah, I mean...
But they're not supposed to.
Such a ridiculous fight.
That's the entire purpose of the Second Amendment. They're not supposed to have more firepower. That's why people like the ATF can go in and light up, little villages.
Yeah, it's so funny. They always talk about our government enforcing our will around the world, but you're completely fine with like every government organization having enough equipment for a SWAT team. We only hear about Black Lives Matter. We don't literally hear about how the government has enough equipment to like go around door to door and arrest all of the American civilians that they don't like because they have all the sweet shit to do it. And once again, it's across multiple organizations, ATF, FBI, CIA, all these organizations. The freaking dog patrols probably got assault weapons, but they demonize the Americans that own it, So this doesn't surprise me. They know exactly what they're doing. This guy wasn't even telling the truth. He was lying and they knew it. The politicians knew it. That guy knew it. We're just in a democratic president right now. This isn't going to go anywhere. They're going to pass the gun control they want, whether it be executive action or not. But yeah, they're coming for all of them. That's why they're not going to define they're going to do it in incrementalization. They want all of the guns off the streets.
Well, that's right. If they define it now, then they confine themselves to what they can actually restrict. If they leave it open, then who knows?
Because you know what happens, right after they've defined assault weapons and removed all that, anyone that they get back, they're going to be like, well, we can't have, the next type of weapon. We can't have the counterinsurgent weapon. We can't have the, they'll just come up with another legalese adjective to define, give it ghost-like characteristics, It's like they investigate more time gutting your civil liberties than enforcing the government to enforce your civil liberties. And this is how term limits aren't going to get passed.
They do the opposite of what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean they all agreed on the Constitution of limited government and self-government, we the people, and then they pass bills that literally gut your civil liberties. Term limits will never happen because the very people that are going to vote on themselves out of a job have to write the legislation. That's why we're getting into a civics class here, this is super important. We're in 2 weeks to flatten the curve. That's how we got here, was we didn't know civics. So, fuck them. People, we deserve what we get. This is indicative of American conscience. This is why not everybody should vote, quite frankly. Everybody should have the capacity to vote. Not everybody should exercise that capacity. I want voting for all, but only few to vote. Thank you very much. There was a big take this week. They were all blowing big oil, right? The big oil was taking a hit. I'm not going to get into all that about climate change. All that's just get ready for gas to go up. It's already going up. Gas is at $2.99. It's not going to stop, people. And if you're banning oil, we're going to go to natural gas and coal and these other things. Your electric bill is going to go up. So keep an eye on it, guys. This isn't. They know what they're doing. And to just tie real quick onto the climate change front, I saw a poll. Speaking of polls, less than half the people in the poll would be less. Less than half the people asked would not even spend $10 to fight climate change.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, so let's just take the half people and say they're Trump supporters. We could probably divide this along party lines even without trying. But this is where we've gotten because we've lost the ability to conversate. And just one last thing before I get to my Decembertainment. Obama said institutional constraints kept him from talking about certain killings.
I saw this.
Now, I'm going to say
which killings do you think he's referring to? I'm going to go full conspiracy. I'm hoping he's talking about JFK. Is that who you thought he was referring to?
I don't know. I think he meant more along the whole racial divide thing. That's the way I took the article, and I just want to ask the former president, the same constraints that did not allow you to talk about certain things, were they the same constraints that got you elected? By, from what I'm told, a predominantly racist country, even though white people voted for you? Like, most of the country voted for you twice. All them racist white people, right?
No, they voted for somebody else, remember?
It's a joke. They make a mockery of your conscience, man. So it's going to tie perfectly into my Decembertainment about how they control everything. I wrote something. I didn't do much this weekend. And then kind of in a little monk mode, I played a little video games, a little Zelda the other day, but nothing substantial, nothing like took my breath away. But my friends had a party yesterday, so I did that. I want to say I'm grateful for all of them, and I love them and all their support and all that. But yeah, I had a relaxing weekend, but I came up with something. I wrote something down. You know, I talk about this all the time on the podcast, but I think it summarizes nicely about how some of the themes we've talked about today with like big tech and how they can craft narratives. And I know why. I know why they can craft narratives. Yeah, so I'm just going to read a quick thing, and then I'd like to talk about it. Screens have made it ever easier for humans to live in a fantasy land. Science was once a starting place of conversation. Information and education was a starting place for conversation. Seems we've lost that all deep within the scroll of the Matrix. And I'll go a step further that when you text somebody, it is not speaking. It's we live in the fourth dimension. These screens that we have are fourth dimensional. So Elon Musk has talked about how we are already we already live like augmented reality because we have phones. It like expands our brain and our power and our capability. We're already like part androids. Well, I'll go a step further. We don't live in 3D. We physically exist in 3D, but a lot of our interactions, a lot of our conversations, a lot of our thoughts, a lot of our feelings are experienced in the 4D space with screens. And screens themselves, if you look up scientifically what they do to you, consider biology-wise, they put you in a hypnotic and a sleep-like trance because of the blue light. So if we factor these things together, while you're experiencing the 4D, you're being put into a trance, and that's why I think people have problems with social media, pornography, various things on screens in particular. But I just want I want people to realize that like when you send a text, you're not speaking. That is your thought. It's like it's like visual telepathy. So, you know, I speak a lot of different things here about spending your time and your resources and social currency. Well, this is another one of those things, man. Like we live in the 4D. This is same. Your screens are the same thing as Monsters Inc. doors that they open and close and they go to another reality. It's the same thing, though. It's the same exact thing. Whether it be a YouTube video, you watch a movie on these things, you suspend your disbelief. It's easier to do it because a screen's there. It's really hard to fool your eyes if you're touching something real. But for some reason, when we put this liquid crystal screen in front of us, we are in a fantasy realm. We believe aliens out of the sky. We believe this, you know. And I'm not saying aliens are fake. I'm just saying the illusion of the screen, maybe it makes it easier for us to believe in the idea of fantasies. It makes us easier to suspend our disbelief. And then since we're clouded with disbelief, since we're clouded with fantasies, since most of our sensations are from a four-dimensional space, it's hard to live in the three-dimensional space, which is biology, because we're living in the 4D. We're living in the Matrix. And
there's I've not watched it, but I've heard a lot about it. The Social Dilemma. I believe it's a documentary. I think it's on Netflix. But it's basically about this very thing that you're talking about, and it goes more into the idea of like the depression and everything that comes from people who live through these screens. Because not only that, but then the addiction side of it too, where people who constantly check things because they get a little bit of the
dopamine. You get dopamine. That's right. Because these screens, the 4D is influencing your 3D, which is your biology, right? We're putting our mind into these things, right? Once again, your texts are thoughts, man. It's telepathy. This isn't like sending a letter, man. You know, this is fucking telepathy. We just see it. Oh, the next thing is hyperlink, and we don't see it, but it's the same thing, essentially, the same concept. Like we're sending thoughts to each other. That's fucking telepathy, man. So the 4D is mimicking our 3D because the 4D is giving us dopamine on these screens. All of our likes on Instagram, right? And then when the 4D, what we're getting from the 4D when that doesn't mimic the 3D, I'm definitely depression, suicide, all these other things that we talk about, you know, especially in the younger generation, which I'm sure that Social Dilemma focuses on.
Yeah.
Honestly, Dave, at our age, we came at the perfect era. You know, like we grew
kind
up
of a
in
nice in
technology.
between.
Yeah, you know, there was no smartphones to hang around with and Snapchat all day. We had to go play football or play video games. It's similar, but it's a lot different. Like a 10-year-old can Snapchat filter all day. We didn't even have that. Social media just getting started. All this social currency, all this social status, a lot of that shit didn't exist. So, but yeah, I came to the realization, man, that like this 4D thing it's the Matrix, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, you know, linking to that point, for people watching, feel free to like and comment on the channel. Also, subscribe. You know, release some dopamines.
Yeah, I need the dopamine, especially now. But yeah, I'll leave it there with everybody. I want you, you know, people that made it to the end, I appreciate it. But think about this shit, man. When we send this, you know, I talk of currency, like I said, but you know, we're not in the 3D anymore, man. We're in the 4D, and you know, if you talk to religious or spiritual people, what's that? The seventh dimension? Not, you know, where are we on this scale that we actually experience that we don't put a Richter number to it? So, but I appreciate everybody. Thank you for watching. This is Dave and Ryan from December 1773. Tune in at 7 on Mondays Eastern. We drop every week. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video. Dave, I appreciate you. I appreciate you all, December Nation, and I will see you on live premiere, and then I'll catch you all next week.
Yeah. And we will be premiering this week on Memorial Day, so of course, major day. As Kamal Hesh would say, you know, thanks for the long weekend. But really, it's a lot more than that. Obviously, Memorial Day is a very serious thing. So, a lot of appreciation. Where we're at right now couldn't have been done.
Yeah, the stuff I in particular get very passionate about: civil liberties. I, quite frankly, shit talk Europe because our grandparents went and saved them. But that's what that's about, man. Like the Civil War, people that fought for freedom of black people. I mean, the American revolutionary people that fought to give us the country. Like, there's a reason it goes all the way back, and you're supposed to think about it. Because, you know, our ancestral roots, man, it's powerful. I don't know if you've had service members and stuff or heard stories or got anything close. I don't have a lot of war stories in my family, but people served. Some people in my family died, you know, in World War II.
That's what this day is about.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. We're all lucky to be part of this human experience and live it in this country. And, yeah, in between your hot dogs and your fireworks, and I say this on 4th of July as well, in between your beer and all that, read the Constitution, man. Read the Declaration. Be thankful for the men that gave all so we can have, you know, a little bit better. Maybe, or just dream of living better. You know, so, but we all got to craft that world and also try to make it worth it, man. If you got stories, tell people. We should talk about it. You know, your grandfather's story of the war, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just too giving with information, but anyways, yeah, guys, don't just don't just get a free day off of work. Enjoy it. Think about them, you know. So, once again, thanks everybody. Thanks December Nation. Dave, I love you. I'll see you on the premiere and catch you all next week.
See you then. Thank you.